So you can see the mappings, the one-to-many mappings with every user has a multiple user roles, and then every user has multiple address informations, and the standard, you can see the standard, the constructor, the super constructor, and then all the getter and standard getter and setters, and even though we can put it here, the two string methods when you need to present to see the data clearly, to see the data clearly. So you see the mappings part, and this is the important part, as I said, the last important part to the how we call the how we injected the injected the dependency. We build primary the sequences in the database level, and we implement the sequence call, and then inject the sequence, generated sequence to the primary key. Automatically will generate. This is important. You need to take care. Maybe you have a very special sequence generator, SQL script, and some SQL developer did it. Just you need to take the sequences, see that the sequences, that's what exactly I did in the last part in the database level. So I just call and give it the sequence name, exactly what in the backend in the database level, and I implement the sequences in here. So you see here the sequences. So it's a very simple select statement, intervals, and then get the sequence name and get the sequence ID, and it's automatically create the sequence and put the sequence to your primary key. And this is the important, you need to follow. Maybe you have different ideas to generate the sequence. I found it is a professional way to generate the sequences, and it works automatically, and it's a very simple way to do, and you have more control. If here something change in the sequence level, then you need to control in this level, even though you can give it, we take the sequence ID, or you build the complex sequence ID. So you get the sequence database, build extra sequence in here in the application level, and composite it and build complex sequences. So that means you segregate your business logic from the backend to the application level. So there's a possibility, because this is the code, the core part coming from the backend level, and then you define your some business logic this level and add it with the sequences. Like maybe sequence number one, they have some address, the birth date information with that one. Then take the birth date informations and inject those integrate or add it with the sequence, and then make the complex sequence ID, as it's automatically generated to the database level and your business logic, and inject to the your primary key. So here the same thing that we need that to define. So we define now the sequence, generated the sequence, the same thing is here generated. It is exactly the same definition that we have it here. So here we define our entity and table names, even though if you don't put it the table names, it's created the user role tables automatically. It's by default, but for my case, just I use it here, the name of the tables. Even though you can rename the tables. Then this is the ID, it's a primary key ID, and then this is your entities or your properties for the user role. So user role has its own ID, the user role name and type, and then when the user role created for belongs to the for the specific user. And here is the, okay, then let's see that same thing here is a standard getter and setter, and you can add it here, the two string methods to present properly in your data somewhere. So here, so strategy, that's true. Then let's see how is it in the address info. Address is linked, and address informations. So you see the address table is created, and the same thing is here. We call our sequences. Sorry. So we call our sequences, and the same thing is we call sequences, build the sequences, and then if you need it, just put it here, business logic extra, and integrate with your generated sequences in the database level. And you see the definition of each of the address information has the address itself as a primary key ID and the reference ID. Maybe the reference ID means some ID, some information to the Google Maps or OpenStreetMaps, and then you can put it here, this information. Okay, I am living this street, and this is the street has Google Maps or OpenStreetMap has this ID. Then we automatically synchronize with the maps and the address information. Then after that, we see all the users in the maps. So it's the most important attributes or flags. So address type and city, and then roads and road type, and the house number, postal code, and country. And here the super constructor and standard getter and setter methods. That's all. So that means our mappings, our Hibernate mapping, our JPA mapping is done, and 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 we called our backend servers, and we generate all necessary sequences that what we need to build the application, to what we define and what to build applications in the application Java level, application level. So that means our definition done, our mapping is done. Then what we need to do now, we need to build our repositories, because we need repositories to do our operations, our CRUD operations, based on the model that we define here. So let's see how is it our repository is done. So let's open our user registration repository. So it's very simple. Just you define your interface based on the models, the user registration repository. I like this way to naming it, and this is the way of professional way to name it like this. So you know that I am in the class, this is our models, the domain class, and then we put it so this is the repository interface. Then we extend the code repository. The last many screencast in maybe this is in screencast number 30 or 29 or 28. Just I described detail about all the respective repositories, like CRUD repository, JPA repositories, or different database-based repositories, Mongo repositories, or Cassandra repositories. A lot of things is there. So that means, and the standard CRUD repository normally when you did the CRUD operations, and even though you can use JPA repository here, except the CRUD repository is still the same works, but in the constructor is a little bit different, or I can say the parser is different than CRUD and JPA and other repositories. So just you simply define your models and name it interface, and extend your define interface to the CRUD repository, or even though in JPA repository. So the same thing is here. So you see that we have three models and definitions. We do the same thing here. So it's a CRUD repository extended, and with the CRUD our model name, and then the primary key flags or serializer flags. I mean the serializer. And here is you see the address information as it is. It's very simple. No, it's different. They need to, let's say, user. No, it's just user role repository. Where is it? Address information. So as it exactly. So you see the address models, and we extend the CRUD repository, and then it's done. So that means our model definitions and mapping is done. We define all the necessary repositories. That means three repositories. Then with those three models, the three repositories, the interfaces, we need to implement those interfaces to do our CRUD operations. So let's see how is the CRUD operation is done, the implementations. So here is the important part you need to take care. So that's I said, this is the professional way to modularize your package. So we define our repository, and now we define our own service interfaces. This is our own service interfaces. Then this is the interface definition with when notated with service. That means this is when the Spring Boot compile your applications, then this is automatically bin is generated, service bin generated, and you injected the service bin. So this is the interface definition, everything is there. So service interface definition is the same definition with the respective models, and there are possible input and output, and the role is here, and the address information, and the same thing, exactly the same things what you need to do your CRUD operation.